last season. It seems like Stanford every year has this guy that, we feel like maybe this quarterback's going to be the one that could put them over the top since Andrew left, obviously. But they've been inconsistent. So they need some more consistency there. I really think this offense is going to be better this year. I think Costello will do a pretty good job. Last year, in 39 trips into the red zone, they scored a touchdown only 19 times. That's unacceptable. You can't get a touchdown less than half the time you get into the red zone. So I think they'll be more efficient this year. I would expect more points from Stanford. Defensively, they lost quite a bit. 4 of their top 6 tacklers are gone. Defense allowed 6.0 yards per play last year, so they weren't very good. Stanford has even talked about trying a 2-4-5 scheme, which is certainly different. They're very weak on the defensive line compared to normal, and their linebackers are strong. I think this defense is weaker than most people think it is. My biggest lean here for Stanford this year would be to play some overs with them. I think Stanford's going to score some more points, give up a decent amount, and I don't think the Stanford totals will be set all that high.
I gotcha. Yeah, they've kind of been an under team in general, and Stanford, obviously Bryce Love, one of the top running backs last year, will be competing against Taylor for that. Looks like they're the 2 favorites for the Heisman race. They've got a pretty interesting schedule. They got Notre Dame on there. Week 2 already against USC. That's going to be a challenge. Do you have any feelings on any leans on the 8.5 over/under season win total?
If I had to pick, I'd take the under here. I think Stanford's defensive weaknesses could be exposed a few times. I do like Shaw. I think Shaw's a good coach, so I don't love taking the under here, but that would be my slight lean. I will say, if you look at their schedule, it's pretty tough. You play at Oregon, at Notre Dame, at Washington. That's some tough road games there, and obviously playing USC so early in the season, and Utah will be no pushover. I don't think this is a very easy schedule, so I would say that Stanford, I would lean toward the under here. I wish I could have gotten 9 instead of 8.5, but like I said, I think Stanford is a team that will score more points but give up more this year. They're still going to play the slow tempo that they always do, but I think their defense is just a lot weaker than they've usually been.
Yeah, you're right. They have a lot of tough away games at Notre Dame, at Cal, even at the end isn't exactly easy, at Washington, at Oregon. Yeah, now I see why it is at 8.5 rather than 9. So 9 definitely would have been possibly something to fire on if you can find a 9 out there. Well, that brings us to, I think, the Cal Bears. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that'll work.
So what's your thoughts on Cal this year? Their season win total was a little bit lower than I expected at 5.5. They return a quarterback here. It looks like for Justin Wilcox's team, he might have a decent shot here. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm seeing some 6.5 as far as win totals. So I think that's probably the most widely available win total right now, which probably is about right, to be honest. I think 5-7 last year was a good season. I think that Wilcox did a really good job with this team. You get 18 starters back from last year. They have some really good wide receivers here. One thing that I was looking at with Cal, though, is their passing game really needs to be a lot more explosive. It surprised me a lot when I was looking at some explosive plays. And Cal only had 9 passing plays of 30 yards or more last year. For comparison's sake, UCLA had 32. And even Arizona State, which was never really seen as a big passing program, had 25. So Cal with only 9 passing plays of 30 yards or more, definitely a problem. They also had some fumble luck last year. 15 times they fumbled, only lost 3 of those fumbles. So you could point out some negative things about Cal. They don't have a star running back, kind of a questionable offensive line. The defensive line, or the defense in general, got much better last year. I think Wilcox has some good assistant coaches. It might be hard for them to improve on their defensive numbers from last year. There's some good offenses here in the Pac-12. I want to see how Cal plays as far as their tempo this year. Are they going to be an up-tempo team? Are they going to be middle of the pack? Again, this is a team that I don't even have a strong lead on the win total either. I think this is kind of a wait and see, but a pretty good coaching job done last year, and I think it's a fair number as far as the win total.
Yeah, I think that you're right. 6.5 is kind of where I saw it. I was looking at some latest standings that somebody tweeted out today for that number. I think you're right. 6 is a little bit more correct. I did skip Oregon here. I guess Oregon would be the better team in the Pac-12 North, at least pre-ranked. How are the Ducks going to do this year with their quarterback Herbert?
Well, I like Oregon. This is one of the teams that, you have to say, though, you have to have the preface of if Herbert's healthy. Because obviously they need him badly in the game. We saw that last year. Mm-hmm. I think as long as he's healthy, this team could be really good. I like Oregon quite a bit. I think that they are a team that could show some value here. I think it's interesting as Cristobal takes over. He said he wants it to be a physical football team. We'll see what happens here, because they've been so, speed, everything is speed there. And now they want to do more physicality. I don't blame them because certainly they've been hurt by some of the physical offensive lines and, in their Stanford games and games like that in the past. I think they do need to have some more physicality. I know they want to try to blend the speed and physical, and obviously that's what everybody wants to do. So sure. We'll see how it works. One thing is, if you look at last year, Oregon had 1,148 yards of penalty yards last year. They had more than 13 yards per game penalties than the second most penalized team in the Pac-12. So Oregon's got to clean that up. They can't have that many penalties. It's hard for anybody to win consistently like that. I will say, I think that the Oregon defense does not get nearly enough credit for their improvement. Leavitt is a tremendous defensive coordinator. He is very high on my list of defensive coordinators. You look at how bad Colorado did after he left there, and you look at what Oregon did last year. Oregon gave up 6.4 yards per play 2 years ago, only 5.1 last year. Yeah. It's a really, really good job. I don't see any real big weakness on this defense. They don't have quite the top end talent that Washington or USC have on defense, but they have really good depth, a great defensive coordinator. I think this defense is going to be pretty good. It sounds pretty odd to say that when you're talking about Oregon.
Totally. Oregon was always the big over team, right? You get on those lines early as possible. And now, that this could be a sign to maybe be a little bit ahead of the market. If this defense is going to be good, while people are going to be betting up the over, it might be smart to jump on the under this year. So some excellent points there. And their non-conference isn't too bad at all. Bowling Green, Portland State, San Jose State, chalk those up to wins. So if they could stay healthy, like you said, this could be a very dangerous team. A lot of people have them pre-ranked in their top 25 power ratings. So moving on from Oregon, I think what do we have left? Colorado here?
Washington State, if we want to stay in that.
Oh, sorry. Yep, Washington State. I don't know. I just looked south. Go ahead. What do we got with Washington State this year? Some people seem to be a little bit down on them. Obviously, they have a great coach.
Yeah, I think Washington State's in a unique place this year. You see their win total sitting at 6 right now, a little bit of juice on the under. Luke Falk was a really good fit in this offense, so certainly a big loss. And tragically, Tyler Helinski lost as well. Those guys are going to be missed. Mike Leach always does pretty well coaching up the quarterback, so I imagine the quarterback position won't be that bad this year. I will say that I think that their offensive line is such a weakness that could really bother them. They allowed 44 sacks last year. I know everybody's going to say Luke Falk held the ball too long. He probably did a lot of times, but you could watch Washington State games and tell that the offensive line is a real problem. I think it probably will be again this year. Defensively, Alex Grinch left still as an assistant at Ohio State. Tracy Clay is the new defensive coordinator. I think Grinch did a really good job here, so I think that's a fairly significant loss. They only allowed 28.49% third down conversion attempts to be successful against them last year. It's going to be really hard for them to repeat that. To me, that's a sign of regression to the mean. This defense is not bad, but I don't think they're as good as they were last year. Obviously losing a couple of their top players. So to me, maybe look to play some unders with Washington State and I might look to play against them as well.
Yeah, they're only ranked 107 in returning production here. Lots of people are looking at this as a rebuild year for Mike Leach, but he's been known to surprise us before, hasn't he?
Right.
So, well, moving on from that, what do we have left here? I believe Oregon State, the bottom of the barrel.
Right. I mean, we can talk about Oregon State pretty quickly. I don't want to spend too much time on them, but I really do say that Jonathan Smith has a really tough job here. I mean, this is an absolute mess. Their win total is 2.5 with the under juice to -155, -160. Wow. I mean, that tells you all you need to know about this team. Brian Lindgren, the offensive coordinator here, was previously at Colorado. He says he wants to play a pro-style offense that plays fast. So we'll have to see what that means. This team's really not set up to play fast. They're not going to be outscoring people. They probably needed to try to slop up the game and make it be low scoring. But, I mean, to me, the defense, Tibisar, I don't know if that's the correct way to pronounce it, but the new defensive coordinator, has been a linebacker coach at Wisconsin. He says he wants to get speed on defense. They don't have that right now. This is just a really bad defense. I don't think any of these guys should be judged on this season. I think this team's going to be terrible, but the odds makers know that. So any value here, I don't know.
Yeah. Oregon State was a fade team last year, and they really did fade out. No reason to talk anymore about this team. I absolutely agree with you there. I don't think they're going to catch anybody by surprise. There's going to be some pretty big spreads here when they're playing other teams. So I don't know if you're going to get a ton of value, looking to play any of their opponents. So we'll see. We'll see how that develops out. Well, let's move on to the south side of the conference then. Let's start with the team that is always on top, USC. What do we know about USC?
Yeah, USC, I mean, some big departures from last year's team that went 11-3. Obviously, Darnold. I think that the running game, though, Ronald Jones was tremendous. I think he was probably undervalued by a lot of people. I still think they have good depth at running back, and they'll do okay there. Strength of the team, to me, is their wide receivers, or the strength of the offense, at least. The offensive line probably be better this year than it was last year. They were pretty banged up last year. And then obviously the huge question, who's going to be quarterback here? I don't think we even know who's going to win the job. It's kind of hard to evaluate it. It's certainly going to be a drop-off. Darnold turned the ball over too much last year, so they need whoever's going to be the quarterback here to take care of the ball a lot better. I think the offense will be down, but how much it'll be down, that's to be determined. We'll see about that. I think this defense is really good. I mean, they should be excellent. USC, 46 sacks last year. The youngsters got a lot of playing time last year because of the injuries, and that should help them this year. So those guys that jumped in and had a little bit of a, quick wake-up call early last year, they should be pretty good this year. And I think they'll be a little bit better against the run than what they were last year. The thing that USC did last season that they can't do again was they allowed too many big plays. They allowed 26 passing plays of 30 yards or more. Washington and Washington State only allowed 12. So this secondary is too good to be getting beat deep that often. I don't think that should happen. I don't think it probably will happen again. This is just a team that's given up too many explosive plays. They are really, really loaded. To me, there's still a little bit of a question about how good of a coach Clay Helton is. Like I talked about, Chris Peterson's tremendous. So judging against him wouldn't be very fair, but Clay Helton's a guy that I'm not really sure how to rate. My power ratings, I always am not really sure where to put him. I think that he's a notch below some of the top guys for sure. It's just, is he subpar? I don't know. I think this year's going to tell us a lot about him.
Yeah, I agree. It's really strange to see USC not in the top 10, top 15 even, coming into this year. They're normally a reload type of team, right? Like your Clemson's, Alabama's, Ohio State's. They're kind of looked at as the is a team that's always going to be in the top 10. They always have that next guy up. And then now you're sitting there, I'm looking at Athlon and they're ranked 21. I think that's kind of strange. And maybe that is a little bit because of Clay Helton. Alabama's possibly replacing their quarterback. It's what it's looking like. Ohio State replaced their quarterback.